I'm known. I got one of the best sucker punches in the business.
Sucker punches.
Sucker punches.
That's not a good thing to be known for.
Hell yeah, it is in the street. It is.
This is Johnny and Jose with Tiger Bomb MMA, and today we'll be going over UFC 261, Usman versus Masvidal 2. Be going over the entire card, giving you our thoughts and predictions. And yeah, we'll probably give you some thoughts on some bets, prop bets, who to avoid. There's a lot of people to avoid on this card. But we'll begin with the opener of the prelims, a bout between Johnny Munoz Jr., Kid Kvenbo, and the Afro Samurai Jamie Simmons, but as I call him, the other James Krause. I think that's what they listed him as James Krause Simmons at one point. So we're like, what the fuck? James Krause is dropping down to featherweight. But yeah, it's an interesting matchup between two grapplers. The current odds are minus 285 for Munoz, and Simmons comes back at 225, plus 225. Very fascinating matchup. I've actually been quite impressed by Johnny Munoz, even in his loss to Nathan Magnus. I kind of liked his style. He was very aggressive with the takedowns. Striking was okay. It wasn't as good as Magnus's, of course, but he was quite aggressive on the ground with going for submissions. I think he is a black belt or very close to it. As for Jamie Simmons, his last fight was against Giga Chikadze. Unfortunately, this dude was brought in here just for as a sacrificial lamb for Giga. He got head kicked and knocked out. He didn't pose much of a threat to Giga. His striking is not top quality, but it can improve. He's kind of a stumpy guy. He's a 5'6" with a 70-inch reach, which is he's got a pretty long reach for being that height compared to the 5'9" and 71-inch reach for Johnny Munoz. But for Simmons, his bread and butter is the takedowns. He's a very strong, explosive guy. Reminds me almost kind of a less polished Chad Mendez almost. It's a little bit of a high praise, but that's the only guy I can think of right now that's very similar, just a little stocky guy that wrestles. Johnny Munoz, though, I think he's just the overall way better fighter. Not to say that he's going to win this one really easily. This is going to be a back and forth grappling affair. It might even cancel itself out and become a striking affair, which I honestly think Munoz is the better striker between the two. I will go with Munoz to win. I don't know. It's very much unknown between both these two guys because from what I've seen from Munoz, I've been more impressed. I haven't really seen a whole ton from Jamie. Even watching tape, it's not, he's just beating up random bums on the ground. So I can't really make a comment as to how good he's going to be in the UFC. I think currently Munoz is presenting himself to have the higher ceiling. I'll go with Munoz, very opportunistic submission in round number 2.
I agree. I think Johnny Munoz will get the victory here. And I think it'll be due to his height and reach advantage on their feet. I think he's going to have the more fluid movement on his feet, even though they're both grapplers. They're both, ground game guys, which, as you mentioned, will cancel out, or not might, but I think it will cancel out. I think they're going to want to also showcase what they can do on their feet. But I think Johnny will have the advantage there. I think he'll just be a little bit more fluid on his feet. One other thing to note is that, as you also mentioned, Jamie did get knocked out by Giga 5 months ago. I don't know. I mean, it wasn't the most horrible knockout I've ever seen. But again, a lot of these fighters come in, I think, way too soon because they want to prove themselves. They want to show everybody, they want to prove to everybody that it was either a fluke or, that they're a lot tougher, than, what they showed in their last outing. So I don't know if 5 months is enough time for Jamie to have recovered. And I say that not just, not because, it's not like he got knocked out and then he's just coming, in for the fight. During the 5 months, he had to have, a certain amount of weeks, or I don't know how much time he took to actually recover. And by that, meaning no training, no head trauma and whatnot. So he may have gotten, maybe some further head trauma and sparring during training. I don't know how shaken his brains are at this point. So that's my other worry. Even though Johnny Munoz isn't known for knockouts, very possible he might. I guess I'm going around in circles, but That being the case, I'm kind of retracting my initial statement. So I guess it is possible for Johnny maybe to get um, possibly a TKO. Maybe hit him on the button on his feet and do a bit of ground and pound. Yeah, but I mean, I'll still go with Johnny. I guess maybe I'm overanalyzing this first fight, but yeah, let's go.
Well, we sure won't be overanalyzing the next one. At strawweight, we've got a women's MMA bout between Ariane Carnelossi and Na Liang. And man, I was having trouble finding any real information on Na Liang. All I know about her is that she has fought certain competition that would be considered a step up, and she's lost every single time. Uh, I saw her fight Maria Agapova. That's, I think, her second to last loss. And it was baffling because she pulls guard immediately and then she gets pounded out. And I'm like, what the hell? Why is she in the UFC? Like, she lost to Juliana Velasquez, who is the Bellator champion right now. She lost to Lilia Shakirova, who I believe she lost to Lauren Murphy. She made a debut on short notice. So you kind of see that she takes certain steps up and then she loses because she is a bit of a can crusher. And to be honest, I see her kind of as a can. I don't know too much about her overall. It's just that she's very unreliable because at this point, this could be a spot where she can display, hey, she's been improving with a PI in China and people helping her. It could really step up her game, make her less susceptible to make dumbass decisions. But when it comes to her opponent, she's also a little bit of a question mark. Her last fight was a loss to Angela Hill. And while watching that fight, she did not pose any threat whatsoever. It's almost like when you're teaching your teenage nephew how to box, and then you tell him, hey, just rush me. And then you start jabbing him to death. That's pretty much what happened. She just kept coming forward, not really offering much in offense, pushing up Angela Hill against the cage, and she just kept getting lit up. But she is, at this point, I think she's the better fighter than Liang, but she is at a very, very, very bad disadvantage. She's 5'2" compared to Liang's 5'9". She has a 61.5-inch reach compared to Liang's 67.5-inch reach. It's like, who the hell knows what will happen? It's very possible that Liang takes the Angela Hill approach and kind of stays at the distance and just wins by a slight decision. But I can also see Ariane, take down Liang and then just beat her ass. Because again, I've seen Liang look bad on the ground. It is a crazy toss-up for me. The odds themselves are a bit tempting too, because plus 130 for this unknown Chinese girl, Dragon Girl is her nickname, against a girl who we've seen in the UFC look bad. I get it. It's tempting. I'm like, you never know, the possibility of her striking being so excellent against a girl who's, stubbier and shorter than her. Maybe, but I'm staying the hell away from this one. I will go with the favorite on this one. I think Carnelossi is going to show that there is a level to the game of MMA. Although these two aren't at any top level whatsoever, I think that Ariane is slightly above Liang. I think Liang, I've seen enough of what she can do, and I'm not impressed. So I'll go with the favorite to win this one by a decision.
Yeah, I was just looking at their stats, and I don't, and unless there's a typo here, Jesus, Na Liang is a giant. She's like, the Chinese Braun Strowman of the women's division. She's gonna tower over Ariane. She's 5'9", and Ariane's 5'2". Jesus. Not only that, her reach, holy macaroni, 67.3.
It's tempting, isn't it? Like, oh, plus 130 for a giant Chinese
Good
girl.
Yeah, but it's gonna be kind of like
one takedown, dude, and that's it. Like, you start ripping up your ticket.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is gonna be like the Great Khali versus, I don't know, like Kurt Angle or something. Not to say Ariane has Kurt Angle's wrestling credentials or anything, but
you wouldn't need it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's at least worked on not her, not wrestling takedowns, but jujitsu takedowns. You know what I mean? Which is going to mean she's going to probably lock her up, push her to the cage, and then, go for a double leg or single leg trip or something. And then just kind of, lay on her, take a nap on the ground, use Liang as a pillow for 15 minutes.
You know what's funny? Before you continue, I was looking at a record. I feel like the UFC wants her out of the UFC. Ariane, that is because her first fight in the UFC, she was matched up with Talia Santos, and they gave her Angela Hill, and then they were going to match her up with Mackenzie Dern. They're like, yeah, let's get this girl out of the UFC.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, anybody right now. I think Mackenzie Dern is on a streak. Unlike that other chick who beat her, what's her name, who lost?
Ibas.
Yeah, Rebus.
Reebok.
It's funny. Mackenzie Dern got her groove back, so to speak, and she took everything. And I'm pretty sure Mackenzie Dern is going to get on the mic after her next fight. If she wins, she's going to shout back at Mackenzie Dern for taking everything that she's worked for. She's going to fight her fucking ass. But here, I mean, taking a look at Na Liang's record, she's fighting. She got to her record by fighting other women who are 0-0, 2-0, 2-2, 4-2. She did beat other fighters who were 3-1, 6-2, 3-4, but she's fighting 1-2, 10-4. Yeah, I mean, she beat them, but it's not like, and as you mentioned, every time there's a step up in competition, she loses. Yeah, and not to say that Ariane is a step up in competition. I don't think she's all that much better, but I would stay away from this. I mean, I'll go with Ariane, just due to the fact that she has a slightly better record, and yeah, she lost to Angela Hill, but it was just due to a cut. It wasn't like Angela Hill KO'd her or something. Yeah, this one's tough. I mean, they're both, not. I want to say they're both not high level, nor do I anticipate either of them being a contender in the future. So I'll take the over with Ariane, reluctantly. Just somebody putting a gun to my head.
Our next fight at flyweight, we've got a bout between Jeff El Jefe Molina and probably one of the cooler nicknames out there, the Mongolian murderer, Ling Aori. Currently, the odds are near even, -110 for Molina, and Aori is -120. Another Chinese quote-unquote prospect. There's a couple of them on this card. I think they're really they are trying to really push these guys because of the institute in China, and they're really trying to get that market. This is a interesting matchup because Jeff Molina, I haven't been too impressed by what I've seen from him. He's 8-2, trains with James Krause and Glory MMA and Fitness, so that's a plus. And as I mentioned in regards to Liang, the fight prior, is that there's not a whole ton of real clear-cut information on some of these Chinese fighters like Aori. I try to do some research on him. And when you look at his record, yeah, you see knockout, and it looks good, but we're not sure yet. We haven't seen the US product. We haven't really seen him fight, top quality opponents. I will give him some credit though. When you do look at his record, he does seem to fight just a diverse mix of opponents. Like when you see certain Asian fighters, they only fight Asian fighters, and it's like, it's not the best real representation because they're probably just only strikers. He seems to have fought a couple either Georgians or Russians, so that's a plus. For Jeff Molina, he's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. His fight with Jacob Silva in the Contender Series, he didn't look incredibly impressive. Most people thought he lost that fight. I'm even surprised that he got into the UFC with that performance. But he's a tough guy, right? He's Colombian. He's from Missouri. I'll give him some prop, that Midwest's toughness, but I'm not sure if he's ready for the type of level of striking that I've seen from Aori. This guy's he's a kickboxer, And Mongolian dudes, man, something about these Mongolian fighters, I just kind of like their aggression, their willingness to really put it all on the line. I will go with Aori to win this one by knockout. I think he's going to be a little too aggressive. He's got a slight reach advantage. He's slightly taller. Jeff Molina, I think he's a tough guy, but I think he gets hit too often. He got hit by a smaller guy in Jacob Silva in his last fight. He got pulled down a lot. You know, if it gets into a grappling exchange, it might be iffy because I think Iori's takedown defense isn't the greatest, but he can get up, and we just have to see what he's able to do. I won't put any money on this one because again, it's an unknown. It's a lot of question marks with these guys, and you can see a guy who might not be the best fighter come in here and beat a guy who, although is potentially highly touted, he can just exploit the weakness, which would be that takedown defense. So I'm going to stay away from it completely, but I will pick Iori to win this one by first round knockout. With a name like Mongolian Murderer, you can't go wrong. So I'll go with that.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the more interesting nicknames I've seen in a long time. He's not the Mongolian Strangler or the Mongolian Slapper. Jesus, to go straight to murdering, that's pretty intimidating, I have to say.
Well, I do wonder now that I say it out loud, is he from Mongolia and a murderer, or does he strictly murder Mongolians?
Yeah, it looks like he is from Mongolia. He's from Inner Mongolia, or he's fighting out of Inner Mongolia, China. So I guess that's where he's from. So I guess he's from Mongolia, and he murders. I don't know if he's murdered other Mongolians. Yeah, it's either way. That's pretty scary if you're Mongolian or not. So I fear for Jeff Molina's life actually in this fight. I'm hoping that they educated the Chinese fighters on this card on the MMA rules. There is no murdering, no actual, no elbow to the throat or anything. Anything that could actually kill Jeff Molina, because he seems like an okay guy. Yeah, this is tough. I know. Yeah, it's on the feet. I think Aori is going to have the advantage, and that's why he's a slight favorite. But this is the UFC, and a lot of these guys when they come in here, they're just not used to the level and the frequency of takedowns and grappling and such. And so unless they've, with that new Performance Institute in China, unless they've taken, experienced wrestlers and grapplers and gotten used to that in training, it's usually they're usually overwhelmed by the amount of actual grappling and wrestling that goes on, against UFC competition. So unless Jeff Molina is coming in with a grappling heavy plan to overwhelm Aori, either against the cage or in the middle of the octagon, I think Aori might have the advantage on the feet. But it's hard to say. I mean, a lot of these fights for me are question marks. One of the maybe a tell, one of the tells is definitely going to be the weigh. The weigh-ins are going to be interesting here, especially watching, a lot of these fighters that you're unsure of and how they size up against each other might be a little bit telling. But then again, you have a talented grappler, that usually is telling of who's going to control the fight. And so, yeah, I'm going to go with Molina to edge out this maybe by split decision, I would say, but I can see Aori winning as well. And according to the people who have voted on Tapology, according to their predictions, Aori is going to take this, but I'll take the underdog here, even though it's not really an underdog because it's minus money. I think it should be plus money. But anyway, I'll be, even if I were betting on this card, which I'm not, I would not bet on this fight. I would stay away from this fight. Too many unknowns.
Our next matchup at lightweight, we've got another Chinese prospect in quotation marks, Zhu Rong versus Rodrigo Vargas. Kazula, as they put it on the UFC Fight Pass. Dude, I was trying to look up Rodrigo Vargas on Fight Pass, and I couldn't find a damn thing. But then I put his nickname in, and there he is. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Anyways, the odds are minus 250 for Rong, plus 195 for Vargas. Very fascinating matchup because we've got a young kid who is roughly a knockout artist. If you look at his record, knockout, and we've got the Mexican fighter coming in here with 2 losses. One loss to Alex de Silva, which was it was a tough watch. Like I'm trying to, I'm watching tape and I'm like, what's something good that he does? Well, he falls backwards pretty well. And then against Brock Weaver, it's like, okay, he's doing okay against Brock Weaver. And then he knees him in the fucking face while he's grounded. And I'm like, okay, like, I was trying to find a way to justify picking Vargas, right? I'm like, what does he do well? He's a black belt in luta libre. I'm like, okay, that's something. He's a tough Mexican fighter. Okay, that's something. He's got a pretty decent head kick. He knocked out Mike De La Torre with a head kick. And I'm like, okay, cool. Because, as we mentioned before, there's a lot of unknowns with these Asian fighters coming in from China. And you could see like, oh, he's a knockout artist, but we don't really know everything about him. I can't find a whole ton of information on Zhu Rong. The one thing I can say, though, I was thinking maybe Vargas is just going to try to take him down and just pound him on the ground, because really the striking is kind of night and day. From what I've seen from Rong, he's very light on his feet. He's very active, good kicks, good punches. But minus 250, it's a little scary to bet on a guy that's minus 250, and I have no idea. So I'm kind of thinking about staying away from it. But yeah, with Vargas, he's kind of super slow. Like I was flabbergasted. I'm like, this dude's really fucking slow. He doesn't really do much. Even his high kicks, like he uses that high kick, the left high kick, a little too much, and you can counter it. I can see Zhu Rong countering that with like a straight right hand and putting him on his ass. Like the way he moves, Rong does. He hops in and out. He's got very good lateral movement, and I can see him just touching up Vargas. And while Vargas is probably going to dive for the legs, I just don't think he's going to be quick enough to beat Rong. I will go with Rong to win this one by first round knockout. I will actually probably go with the under on this one, or even the knockout prop. Just a minus 250 on a guy that I have no real information on is a little scary. I've done that in the past, even though from what I've seen, it looks like he's going to win, but I'm not 100% confident. And I'm not confident in telling people, yeah, he's a sure lock, even though I do think he might be a sure lock. I might ask you guys stay away from it, but I probably do the under. I think someone's going to get put to sleep. We'll see how good Vargas's chin is, but yeah, I'll go with Rong to win this one by knockout. I'll go second round.
This one is a very interesting fight. This is one of the in a lot of these Chinese fighters usually end up being shorter than their opponent when they come into the UFC. But this is, unless the stats are incorrect here on Tapology, he has Rong has a 3-inch height advantage and a slight reach advantage. So I can see where that has given him, and he's only 21 years old, so he's a really, really young guy. And so if he can, if he's going to be successful here, he has to use that to his advantage. And I think he should be set to, just because Rodrigo, is fighting out of Mexico, and Mexican fighters are usually, good on their feet. They're not all that great on the ground. And that's just because of the infrastructure in Mexico. They don't have, they have good wrestlers in Mexico, but, all the good wrestlers in Mexico, they wear masks because they're all luchadors. So he's not going to be flying off the top of the cage, with a frog splash, TKOing Zoo, or maybe he will. I don't know. Maybe he'll, jump on top of the cage. He'll, trip up Zoo Rong and then frog splash him, a la Eddie Guerrero or something. But I doubt he will. The other thing to note is that Rodrigo is 35 years old, whereas Zoo is only 21. So Zoo has the age edge there. And yeah, this one's I think a pretty close fight. Just due to the fact that Zoo is, very young. But according to his record and all his previous fights, he is a fairly aggressive fighter to get those, knockouts and such. So I hate to say it, but you can't go wrong by choosing Rong in this fight. But I do have Rong by second round KO. I think he will hit him right on the button. I think maybe, according to this, from what I'm seeing on Tapology, this guy should be named the Mongolian murderer or the Sichuan murderer.
Our next matchup at bantamweight, we've got a battle between Kevin Quicksand Natividad and Dana Batgerel, Storm Dana Batgerel. Dana Batgerel. A fascinating matchup because from what I've seen from these two guys, we've got a clear advantage in the stand-up with Batgerel. Like, he knocked out Guido Connelly with a really nice left hook. Watching that fight back, I remember actually picked Guido Connelly because I'm like, man, Guido just got to take him down, hold him there, try to submit him. Because Guido, for his age at 40-some years old, he's very explosive in that first round. So I'm like, maybe he can catch Dana. But nope, he got his ass beat the entire fight. He could not get off on what he wanted to do, and Dana just whipped his ass. Like, he's known for his right hand, but he caught him really clean with the left hook. His feints were really nice. Like, I like from what I've seen recently from Dana Batgerel. The only problem is that he hasn't fought in a year, obviously because of the COVID. He trains at Jackson Wink. He's 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. As for Kevin Natividad, his last fight was fascinating. He came in and fought Miles John. I remember this fight specifically because I was on vacation in Portland, Maine, and I was actually watching the fight outside of a fucking Best Buy because I couldn't get to my Airbnb in time. And I remember thinking, like, maybe I should just start driving to my Airbnb. And then I decided to do that. And then as I'm driving, Miles Johns knocks him out with a wicked uppercut. And then it almost looks like the UFC 4 physics when you knock a dude out and he just starts flopping, because it was like a weird, nasty knockout. From what I saw in that matchup is that Kevin, he's a tough guy. He's a striker and he can grapple, but he's not like no Daniel Cormier. He's not like he's not going to rush in there and take you down with ease. I can see Dana really stuffing takedowns and making Kevin pay for those attempts. I think he's overall the better fighter at this point, especially getting polished by Jackson Wink, even though Jackson Wink kind of turned into a joke for a bit. I can see him knocking out Kevin Natividad. Had he not been knocked out, I would consider maybe, he's one of those tough Hawaiian guys with a really tough shin. But, at this point, he's been knocked out before. I think Dana's going to catch him. I'm going to say first round. I think Dana's just going to kind of bombard him like a storm. And unfortunately, Quicksand will sink. I will go Batgerel first round knockout.
Yeah, he does train out of Jackson Wink, and he is out of Mongolia. Man, a lot of these guys are actually murderers, pretty tough fighters. He is he's not giving up actually anything. By that I mean that he's not giving up any height or reach in here. They're pretty, I think, dead even. But Kevin Natividad, yeah, he didn't really impress in his last fight with Miles Johns. He got knocked out, and same with other fighters who get knocked out and come back, I think, a little too quick. I think this might be a little too quick for him. Yeah, I think based on that alone, I'll give the slight edge to to Batgerel. Don't really have much more to add to this fight. Kevin, I think, is walking on eggshells at this point, even though he's only lost once. But I think he's not winning here, and I don't think, unless they match him up with other, or not other, but unless they match him up with a lot less experienced competition, I don't foresee Kevin Natividad being in the UFC for too much longer.
Our next matchup at featherweight, we've got the return of Tristan, the Piera killer Connelly, versus Pat Sabatini. And this guy, Tristan Connelly, came into the UFC very short notice, fought Michel Piera, and he beat him. This guy fights at 145, went up in weight, and fought a 170 Michel Piera. Probably at that time, he might have been upwards of 200 pounds, and he beat him. And it's a nice little meme to say, oh, wow, this guy came up in weight, beat his ass, and he got the 100K bonus because Piera missed weight and he wasn't eligible. And watching that fight back, because I remember thinking, wow, what a great performance. But watching it back, just clear-minded, not really taking into consideration the crowd, because the crowd was wild. That was in Canada. It was a shitty performance from both guys. Tristan Connelly got his ass beat the first round. And then afterwards, Michel just said, hey, let me be a fucking moron and gas out. And then, it was a horrible fight. It was an absolutely horrible fight. No disrespect to any Canadians if this is your boy, but man, that was a really bad fight. Very exciting because, yeah, the big guy got beat by the little guy, but I didn't see much from Tristan Connelly that made me think this guy is like, oh, he's going to be a world beater. He's going to be top 10. He's kind of just a plain Jane almost. He's got a pretty good guillotine, and he's got, okay takedowns. But when I was watching that fight, a very gassed Michel Piera took him down very easily, almost zero resistance. As for Pat Sabatini, he was going to fight, I forgot the guy's name, the guy that missed weight by like 11 pounds, started crying on the scale. What was his name? I'll find out. Rafael Alves. He was going to fight Alves. And honestly, they gave him kind of a softball, like, hey, you showed up on short notice. We're going to give you Tristan Connelly, a guy who hasn't fought in a year or so. How long has it been? Almost a year and a half since that fight. And, it's nice that he made it to UFC. I know he had like a really good story about him meeting Frank Mir, and then he telling Frank Mir, I'm going to be in the UFC one day. And then he made it. It's all nice and dandy. But honestly, Pat Sabatini, I think, is going to run through him. The odds are currently minus 245 for Sabatini, Tristan Connelly plus 185. At this point, I don't think Connelly's going to be the underdog pick of the card. I think he had his moment. He made his money. But man, he's just kind of I don't know. He's not very impressive. Sabatini, on the other hand, he's a very good grappler. He's a very good jiu-jitsu guy. His hands are pretty good. He's a younger guy by 5 years. I think he just demolishes Tristan Connelly. I think he'll take him down and beat his ass. Connelly is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but from what I've seen from Sabatini, I think he's just a better overall grappler, even if his belt ranking isn't as high. I can't remember if Pat Sabatini's a black belt. I remember specifically looking him up, and he has his LinkedIn page, and he lists literally every single accomplishment that he's done in his life, like Little League champion, college wrestler champion. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. I kind of thought it was a douchey move, but I do think Sabatini is going to win this one pretty easily. Tristan Connelly is a tough guy, so I'll go with decision for Sabatini.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely got the edge training out of Renzo Gracie, Philly. He's got the edge in age. He's a little bit shorter, coming in at 5'8". But I think the biggest thing I'm noticing is what's this guy's name? Tristan is his last fight was what, year and a half ago, more than that. He fought in September of 2019. That's when he beat Michelle. That's a pretty long ass time to be, on the shelf, especially at his age, 35 years old. So I don't yeah, sure, people take it as he's had a long time to recover and whatnot, which may be true. Given his age, I think that was maybe an appropriate amount of time to recover for whatever reason he was out. But I don't. Yeah, I think he's gonna be pretty damn rusty. And I don't think he's gonna. He isn't fighting Michelle Pereira again. Pereira, whatever how we pronounce his name again. I don't believe Pat's gonna miss weight. So Tristan sure as hell isn't gonna get $100,000 this time around. Don't really have much to add on this fight. I think Pat's gonna get the decision. He's gonna outwork Tristan. I think he's gonna just look a little lost in there and be like, man, I should have taken all that time off. He should have at least grappled, like done some of those submission tournaments or something. A lot of these guys doing their off time, or done a triathlon, with Diaz brothers or something. Since he's in Canada, I think he's close enough to Vancouver. Yeah, Vancouver's pretty nice. I'd like to go back there in the summertime someday. Once things start to open up. But yeah, so Pat's gonna, I think, take this, and unless Tristan didn't pay attention to the weight, he's probably gonna come in at 170, thinking or not remembering that the fight is at featherweight, which is 145, which is 25 pounds lighter. Yeah, I don't want to keep rambling on about this fight. Pat's gonna win it. He's gonna take it. Younger guy. I think he's gonna be more active. Yeah, I think he's gonna take the decision unless he gets him in a submission, maybe in the second round. But yeah, for sure, take Pat.
Our next matchup at middleweight, we've got a bout between Brendan All-In Allen and Baby K Carl Roberson. Very fascinating matchup. Both these guys are coming in with a loss. And we'll start with the odds. Currently, we have it at -135 for Allen, +110 for Carl Roberson. And I like this one. It is a striker versus grappler affair, but it's a little deeper than that, because Carl Roberson has been working on his submissions and his grappling, and Brendan Allen, he's got okay striking, right? His striking is not at the level of Carl Roberson. Of course, Carl Roberson is considered a quote unquote glory kickboxer, but his grappling is top notch. He was able to submit multiple guys. He submitted Kevin Holland. He submitted Kevin Holland. I'll give him that. Kevin Holland's a black belt. As for Carl Roberson, going back to him, he got submitted by Marvin Vettori in his last fight. Very, I guess you could say, highly anticipated fight. They had that little spat in the hotel room, and they were scheduled to fight multiple times, and then eventually they got in there. Marvin Vettori submitted him by rear naked choke. On the opposite end, Sean Strickland really beat the crap out of Brendan Allen. He made it look really easy, made it look so easy that made you think, man, Brendan Allen wasn't very good to begin with. That whole stir dog thing. You're like, oh, Nunes was never good to begin with when she loses to the Venezuelan vixen. It's fucking funny to say. But yeah, I like this matchup. Right now, a lot of people might be thinking, yeah, one takedown, Brendan Allen takes Carl Roberson down, submits him, and it's over. But I really do believe Carl Roberson has been working on his takedown defense and his overall grappling game. And if this becomes a striking affair, Brendan Allen's going to be a fish out of water. If he gets stuffed in the takedowns, he's going to have a really bad time. And I honestly do believe the play would be dog or pass. I see Carl Roberson actually knocking out Brendan Allen. He got knocked out by Sean Strickland 4 months ago, and he got a beating. He got a pretty bad beating. And although, yeah, you see Marvin Vettori subbed Baby K, it's because Marvin Vettori is an idiot. He's a bull. He rushes you, right? And I say idiot like in a good way, because he doesn't think, he just does. He doesn't think of the possible outcomes of getting knocked out by Carl Roberson. He just goes out there and does what he has to do, which is a good quality. But yeah, he's kind of a bit of a meathead. And I don't see Brendan Allen having that kind of mentality. Yeah, if he bum rushes Roberson and just goes after him immediately, he'll have success. But I don't think he'll have that type of mentality in this matchup. I think he'll try to strike with him, which is going to lead to him maybe getting kicked into the legs, calf kicked, and then just probably countered. He might have some success against the cage, maybe get a takedown, but again, Carl Roberson was able to fend off multiple submissions from Marvin Vettori until he succumbed to that rear naked choke, and that's no real shame. Marvin Vettori might be fighting for the title soon. I do think that he'll knock out Brendan Allen. I'll go with the second round. I think he'll batter him a little bit in the first. Brendan Allen's going to make a mistake, trying to maybe rush in for a takedown, maybe get caught with a knee or an uppercut. But yeah, unfortunately, Brendan Allen's probably going to get knocked out in this one.
That's pretty. That's pretty harsh, but I don't disagree about the possibly getting knocked out since he just got knocked out 4 months ago. Yeah, a lot of these guys are coming back after getting knocked out less than 6 months ago. And I'm no doctor, so I can't really tell these guys, hey, take a year off. You know, these guys have bills to pay and whatnot. But this is a tough one. As you mentioned, this is a classic grappler versus striker. Will Carl Roberson be able to stuff Brendan Allen's attempts? Or if he isn't able to stuff his attempts, will he be able to fend off his advances on the ground? Man, that sounds like a bad kind of thriller movie. Will he be able to stop his advances on the ground? Never mind. But I don't know. Will he be able to stop his advances on the ground? That's the question. And if he is, will he be able to get back on his feet where Carl Roberson will have the advantage? And I think a lot of these fighters do come in a bit, what's the word? Not gun shy, but I guess a little bit shy in the sense of that they don't want to get knocked out for a second time in a row. Because it is pretty quick turnaround for Brendan Allen after getting knocked out. So that's really my only concern, especially because Carl Roberson can put his lights out, because he is pretty. I don't want to say talented kickboxer, but he's a kickboxer. I mean, he did lose to the likes of Jerome LeBanner, but it's Jerome LeBanner. What are you going to say about Jerome LeBanner? He lost to him. He did also, well, I should say he did beat Darren Stewart by rear naked choke, so that's something. I think Darren Stewart's pretty tough guy. He did lose to Glover Teixeira by arm triangle. What was it, two plus years ago? But I don't think that Brendan Allen is anywhere near Glover Teixeira on the ground. We all saw what Glover did against Maheta. And I'm actually excited to see Glover versus Jan. That's the fight I wanted to see. I never really wanted to see Stylebender versus Jan, just because I didn't think that was a very exciting fight to begin with. But Glover versus Jan, now that's going to be, Jan's Polish power is going to meet, the Brazilian tank in Glover. And I'm happy for Glover. He definitely deserves it. And I think that fight is going to be maybe a little bit more exciting than this one. So this is kind of a tough one. I would say if Brendan Allen doesn't get knocked out, I think he might do enough, or I should say he might do enough to control his fight on the ground to get 29-28 decision, I want to say. I think that's what he's going to shoot for, literally and figuratively. So I'll take Brendan Allen here. I know he is the favorite, but that's not why I'm taking him. I'm just taking him because I think he is going to just barely edge out Carl Roberson. It might even be a split decision. Who knows? But yeah, short of Carl Roberson, drilling that, that takedown defense and whatnot. I'll take Brendan Allen here by decision.
Our next matchup at welterweight, we've got Dwight the Body Snatcher Grant versus Stefan Sekulic. And I'll start with the odds to kind of justify my pick, but the odds are -270 for Grant, Sekulic +210. And usually when I see a fighter that just got knocked out, like Dwight Grant, he got knocked out by Daniel Rodriguez. I wouldn't say it was horrible, but it wasn't great. And I try to think maybe there might be some value on picking against him, fading him, if you will. And I looked up Stefan Sekulic, and I saw, hey, he fought Razaman Ameev, one of the very few fights that I miss for Razaman Ameev. And I could not find it. For whatever reason, I couldn't find it legally. Anyways, I did look up some of this guy's past fights to kind of justify, hey, is there a possibility that he could beat Dwight Grant? And I'll tell you one thing, guys, I could not find one. He's okay, I guess. Like, honestly, it wouldn't hurt for him to maybe drop to 155. He has some good attributes. He has kind of a karate type style. He throws a front, kind of like a teep, like a side, not necessarily a full-on side kick, but it's kind of like a side karate kick. I don't know what you would specifically call it, but it's not very impressive, but it's meant to measure distance and keep your opponent away. He has a good mix of, submissions and knockouts, but he kind of waits a little too long on the outside. He's not very, very interested in engaging immediately. So because of that, I'm like, man, Dwight Grant's probably going to run through him. Dwight Grant has a lot of things wrong with his style. He's too wild sometimes, and he relies too heavily on his power. And I mean, if he connects on anybody, he will knock you out. But if he can't knock you out at a certain point, like he's almost, the best way I can describe him is that in the first round, he is incredibly, incredibly dangerous. Maybe the first round and a half. But if he cannot knock you out, it kind of reduces his ability to win there on forward. Because if he can't knock you out in the first, say, 2 rounds at the most, he's probably going to go to decision. He did that with Alan Jouban. He went to a split decision, and he also went to a split decision with someone else. Who the hell was it? Zach Otto. He couldn't knock out Zach Otto. He lost that one. He couldn't knock out Alan Jouban, who is, he's quite chinny at points. Although right now he's been fighting quite smart, quite clever, but he couldn't knock him out. And again, he has some very awkward striking, some awkward technique that can really mess with you. It'll mess with your timing, because it's kind of like when you're fighting a drunken dude and you're like semi-experienced, but that one shot that he throws that you're not accustomed to catches you and he knocks you out. So that's what he does. He kind of got a weird drunken style, but it works quite well for him. He is 36 years old. He just got knocked out. He's fighting a 29-year-old. It's a tough one, to be honest, because if he can't knock you out, if he can't knock out Stefan, I can see a way that he can grind out Dwight Grant. But again, Stefan he's way too passive in there, and he kind of sits back, and I think that's going to be his downfall. I see Dwight Grant actually knocking him out in the first round. I couldn't justify picking Stefan. Might be a live betting situation. Again, if you see Dwight Grant kind of gassing out, trying to knock you out like he did with Daniel Rodriguez, it might be a good spot for you to actually pick Stefan, but I can't go against the body snatcher. I'll go round number 1 knockout.
Yeah, this one's an interesting one, and this is actually one of those Serbian fighters you spoke of previously. He's they're both, I think, evenly matched, or rather, they're both evenly. Their physical attributes kind of cancel out. The only thing, I guess, one of the bigger things is the 7-year age difference. I know Dwight Grant is kind of a specimen, but it's hard to look, completely past Stefan. I mean, Dwight, just based on experience alone, I think Dwight Grant, while the Daniel Rodriguez knockout doesn't look all that great, I think he's had enough time to possibly recover. So. And he did beat, as you mentioned, Jouban and such. Yeah, he has fought, I think, better competition leading up to this fight. Yeah, I'll take Jouban. Don't know if he'll get the knockout in the first. I'll say maybe the second.
Jouban or Dwight Grant?
Oh no, Dwight Grant. Yeah. I don't know if Jouban will get the his knockout in the next fight. But yeah, I think he's set for a comeback. I don't know how much, with the UFC cutting guys left and right. I don't know how much time he has left in the UFC. So I think his back is definitely against the wall, and he's going to want to make an example out of Stefan, which is unfortunate for him. I mean, he did, Stefan on the flip side, he did lose to Imiv. Doesn't look all that great, but what are you going to do? Don't really have too much more to add to this fight. I don't think it's going to be a barn burner by any means. Unfortunately, Stefan's going to be his Dwight Grant's punching bag, I think, for the most part, unless Stefan has really sharpened his skills and is going to take Grant to school and take his lunch money or whatever. But anyway, I'll still take Dwight Grant here. I'll say, yeah. I mean, I usually go safe with the decision, but with it. Let's go with TKO round number 2.
Our next matchup at welterweight, we've got Rude Boy Randy Brown versus Cowboy Alex Oliveira, and I don't know what to say about this one. I'll give you a story about what just happened with Bellator with Julia Budd. Julia Budd fought a girl named Diana Silva. I had money on Julia Budd on a parlay because she was like minus 2,000 for whatever fucking reason. While watching that fight, I was yelling at my phone as I'm watching it on my phone. What are you doing, Julia Budd? Why are you not engaging in a fight? Why are you laying back too much? Why are you not attempting a takedown? This girl, Diana Silva, is swinging air and you're not doing anything. And I'm like, you see the money just like flying out of your fucking hands. Eventually, she wins somehow and gets the split decision win. The reason I bring her up is because Randy Brown has done that multiple times where you're like, damn, Randy, you're so good. Damn, Randy, you can do this. Damn, Randy, you're so fly. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing, Randy? Like getting knocked out by Nico Price on the bottom with hammer fist. I know I shouldn't criticize him for that. That was 2 years ago. Very freaky thing to happen. But it's like he makes mistakes where he gets beat by guys he should not lose to. And granted, he did lose to Vicente Luque, but honestly, he could have potentially beaten Vicente. He has all the right attributes. He's 6'3", 78-inch reach. He just makes a lot of boneheaded mistakes. The fight with Mickey Gall, he should have run through Mickey, and in the second round, he gives up position and almost gets submitted. And you can't really do dumb mistakes like that with Alex. Alex is very much the same way. He makes a lot of dumb mistakes, but he capitalizes on those types of mistakes, especially with guys who aren't as experienced as he is. He has fought the way better competition. He's beat the better competition. He beat Max Griffin, who's kind of resurging right now. He beat Peter Sabata. He did lose to Shavkat Ramanov, which, he might be a potential prospect, and that was by a submission. And the thing is that Randy should come in here and knock out Alex Oliveira. Alex is taking a lot of punishment. And that's kind of the play I want to make. And I forgot if I even brought up the odds. The odds between these two are plus 140 for Oliveira, minus 170 for Brown. See, it's closer than what it should be. Randy Brown should be in a different reality, in a different realm, like a minus 250 against Alex Oliveira, but he makes mistakes in there. It really depends on how confident you are in Randy Brown that he's not going to screw up in here. I'll pick him to win because it's the logical choice, but I'm not counting out Alex. I'm not very confident in this pick. Alex is the type of guy that if you count him out, he'll take your money, and you can't really fault him for that. He's a tough, experienced guy. He hits hard. He's a fun guy to watch. He's got my respect for life, but I got Randy Brown to win this one by second round knockout. If he comes in here and he looks the way he looked against Warley Alves and just puts everything together so well, he should make this an easy fight. But I'm not confident in it. Randy Brown, second round knockout.
Yeah, this one's another interesting one. Alex Oliveira has always been an intriguing fighter to me. just because he is what he is. He's the Brazilian cowboy, meaning he'll fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. But as you mentioned, he has taken a lot of damage, man. I know he's only 33 years old, but in MMA years, he's like more like 43 years old. He, I think if he maybe worked on a little bit more of his, head movement, defense a little bit more, it would have, that would definitely add to him taking less damage in his fights, which in turn, for sure would extend his career, for a lot longer than, I don't know how much time this guy has left if he keeps fighting the way he does. But then again, it is exciting. He is, despite having several losses, and by several, I mean a lot of losses in his UFC tenure. He's been with the UFC since 2015, and he has 7 losses. He isn't, like I said, he is an exciting fighter, and he always brings it. Randy Brown, on the other hand, I'm not really too high on Randy Brown. And yeah, I mean, this is another guy who has the physical attributes to dominate in this division. I mean, he has the physical attributes of a light heavyweight, in the welterweight division, but yet he's, getting dominated by, these other guys who do not. And losing to, Bilal Muhammad, Nico Price, Vicente Luque isn't exactly, I wouldn't say he needs to hold his head down to that, for that, I should say. Losing to Mike Graves, now that for sure, you need to, reevaluate yourself. But he's been in the UFC for quite a while now. And, yeah, man, it's just frustrating when you see a guy like Randy Brown. You're like, wow, this guy has all the potential to, fight for the title, but then he just doesn't. I think he's a choker, man. I'm actually going with Alex Oliveira. Despite him losing in his last fight to Shavkat by guillotine, I think he's going to bring it to Randy Brown. I think this is going to be similar to, what was that fight? It was, what's that guy's name? Jesus. Jim Miller versus, damn it, I forgot that guy's name. Anyway, so this is kind of the seasoned veteran in Alex Oliveira, just taking it to the slightly younger guy.
Did you mean Roosevelt Roberts?
Roosevelt Roberts, yes. I think it's very similar in the fact that, you have an older guy facing a younger, taller guy with all these attributes that should be beating everybody, but he's not. And I don't think he will. So I'm going to take Alex Oliveira here by decision. I don't know if he'll be able to knock out Randy Brown or submit him. I don't think Alex likes submissions. I think he prefers the knockout and just beating guys down. So I'll take Alex by decision here.
And before we start the main card, would like to ask you, please like, share, subscribe.
Come on. Do it. Do it. Come on. Come on. Come on. Do it now.
Show some love to your favorite Tiger Bums from Tiger Bum MMA. For all you guys who've subscribed recently, we appreciate it. We really, really do appreciate it. We like talking to you guys on Instagram. Any thoughts, any questions, hit us up. Want to talk shit to us, perfectly fine. We have some pretty decent comebacks. But yeah, we'll start off the card with a banger, really, at light heavyweight. Jimmy the Brute Crute, as I call him, the Fruit Brute Crute, versus Lionheart Anthony Smith. And we know the perception currently, right? Jimmy Crute's going to whip Anthony Smith's ass. Very likely, yes, very, very likely. But we'll start with the odds. We have plus 165 for Lionheart and Jimmy Crute as a minus 195. Very fascinating matchup because although, the perception is Jimmy Crute's going to run through him, I don't think it's going to be that easy. I think Anthony Smith Anthony Smith has had it kind of hard. He's fought some guys that have made him look kind of bad, but when you look at it in full, you see the whole picture. He's losing to some top level guys at light heavyweight. He lost recently to Alexander Rakic. He lost by knockout to Glover Teixeira, and he was arguably beating Glover, but similar to the way some people might look at this one, the younger guy coming in here beating up the older guy, Anthony Smith tried that shit against Glover and it backfired on him. He was whipping his ass and then he wasn't. And then Glover knocked his teeth out. And yeah, he lost to Jones, of course, but it's just a perception of Anthony Smith right now. His stock kind of went down a little bit, and a lot of people were counting him out against Devin Clark. Devin Clark was having a pretty good run, beating Alonzo Menafield, XYZ, but he got outclassed by Anthony Smith really easily. Anthony Smith is a very dangerous guy, but yeah, I can never count out Anthony Smith. But really, the play has to be Jimmy Crute. Jimmy Crute isn't a Devin Clark. Jimmy Crute, although he did make a boneheaded mistake against Misha Serkinov, I think he really learned from that. He got Peruvian neck choked or neck tied, I'm sorry, by Misha after whipping his ass. And then he comes back and then he takes down Mikhail Olendzejczyk, Kimura's him very easily, no problem. Put a wrestling clinic on that night. And then he knocks out Modestas Bukauskas. And then those two fought. And then we saw how close that matchup was. And he finished both of those guys. And honestly, I think he's just going to run through Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, he got taken down by Alexander Rakic. And Alexander Rakic is a tall, very powerful, explosive guy. Jimmy Crute isn't as tall. He doesn't have the same reach advantage against Anthony Smith. He's about a 4-inch reach disadvantage, but he's a very powerful guy. He's not the brute for nothing. I do see him maybe landing a little bit on Anthony Smith. I will say Smith has the better striking, the more diverse skill set. He can elbow you. He can punch you from range. He can knee you. So Jimmy Crute does have to be very, very careful. But I see him clinching up against the fence with Anthony Smith, taking him down, controlling position. I don't think he submits Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith is really tough, but I do see him getting the decision win. I've got Jimmy Crute to win this one by a very close 29-28 decision. I think Anthony Smith will steal one round. We'll say maybe the third round is going to be a little sketchy for Jimmy, but I see him overcoming and winning this one by a decision.
I think Jimmy Crute is also going to take this fight, and I'm just hopping on the Jimmy Crute choo-choo train here. Anthony Smith, since losing to John Jones, he looked okay against Gustafsson, but then again, we've all seen what Gustafsson is all about in his last few fights. Man, yeah, he got demolished by Glover and Rakic, in his last few fights. And he did come back against Devin Clark. I think that was more, I don't think that was so much Anthony Smith, resurrecting his career or whatever. I think it was just more Devin Clark.
It's a step down competition.
Just dropping. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a step down. I think it was just more Devin Clark not living up to his potential. Jimmy Crute, on the other hand, what'd you call him? Jimmy the Fruit Brute Crute?
Yep.
Man, this guy is a true brute, man. He is, I would say, the only chance Anthony Smith had. Realistically, this is Jimmy's fight to lose. If he sleeps on Anthony Smith, he's gonna get taken out, taken down, and taken to lunch or taken to dinner, whatever he prefers. He is, I would say, losing to Anthony Smith at this point would probably be only second to losing to Sam Alvey, man. Anthony Smith, I think he's done. I don't think if he does continue on, in the UFC, if they let him continue fighting, this guy's going to be a gatekeeper, I think, for lower level competition. I think Jimmy's on his way up. I think Jimmy, after this fight, he's going to be in the top 10 for sure. And I doubt he's going to sleep on Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, he can pull out a win. He's got a good ground game. But unfortunately, he didn't have a good enough ground game against Glover. Glover, showed what he's all about in his fight against Anthony Smith. But I don't believe Jimmy is going to sleep on Anthony Smith. And in that, I do think he is going to dominate all 3 rounds. I don't know if he'll be able to knock out Anthony Smith, because I don't think Jimmy has the same skill set as Glover, where he can he'll be able to maybe jab him or something, knock him off his feet, and then ground and pound him. And I don't think he'll be able to knock out Anthony Smith, because despite everything Anthony Smith lacks, he doesn't have he doesn't have a glass jaw. But I'm not going to be pulling for Jimmy Crute. I'm not exactly, I wouldn't say I'm a fanboy or anything of his, but I am impressed by him. And I have to say he does have the potential to be in the top 5 and possibly challenge for the title. It would be interesting to see him improve and fight Jan or Glover or whoever is holding the title at the time. And I think he is another up and coming star from Australia. A la Rob Whittaker. So I'll take Jimmy by decision, or I don't think he'll be able to submit him or knock him out. So yeah, we'll take Jimmy by decision, maybe 30-27.
Our next matchup at middleweight, we've got a rematch between Chris All-American Weidman and Uriah Primetime Hall. I'll be very, very quick with this one because I'm not confident in either of these two guys whatsoever. It's a near pick 'em, -110 for Weidman, -115 for Hall. And it's very, very accurate. They fought once before. Weidman actually knocked out Uriah Hall very early into their careers. And it's like, I'm flabbergasted by this one. Like, I'm excited to watch it. I'm not trying to shit on the matchup itself. I think it's a good matchup, but when it comes to betting, I'm staying the hell away from this one, because we've seen the trajectory of both of these guys. Like, Uriah Hall was supposed to beat Kelvin Gastelum, become the Ultimate Fighter, and then fight Anderson Silva. But that fight happened 4 months ago, and it shows really what kind of a fighter Uriah Hall really is. He's very talented, but he cannot live up to expectations. Chris Weidman, on the other hand, was the champion. He knocked out Anderson Silva twice. He beat him. But Rockhold, which it's funny to think that Rockhold, a guy who currently is known for a weak chin, is the guy who absolutely demolished Chris Weidman's chin and made him into Chinny Weidman. And that's the thing right now. Uriah Hall should come in here and knock out Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman of 2021, who's 36 years old, almost 37 years old, who's been knocked out multiple times by Gegard Mousasi, by, oh my God, I forgot Souza knocked him out. Wow. And then Dominic Reyes. Who else knocked him out? Well, of course, Rockhold and I love you, boy. Romero knocked him out. He's been knocked out viciously multiple times. And we've seen that he, although has that chin issue, he's still pretty good. He's still a good wrestler, a good submission guy. Omari Akhmedov, I picked Omari to come in here and destroy Chris Weidman, but Chris Weidman persevered. So props to Chris. But really, it's hard to pick who you think is really going to win, because if you think you have a solid pick, then damn, I don't believe you. I think you're lying. Full of shit. Uriah Hall, if we just cut out a piece of his brain and put a microchip in here where he's just remote controlled, he could be a world beater. He's a whirlwind of offense. We've seen it, but he doesn't pull the trigger. And I actually picked Anderson Silva to beat him. And for 3 rounds, almost, I think it was 3 rounds, he was beating Uriah Hall. I think he got hurt in the 3rd, but if that would have been a 3-round fight, it would have shown Anderson Silva wins against Uriah Hall, because Uriah Hall didn't do diddly squat until the 4th round, until I don't know what his corner told him. but he pulled the trigger and he knocked out Silva. He should have done that in the first round. And that's what I fear the most about this matchup, where Chris Weidman should be right there, chin up in the air, ready to get punched. And then Uriah Hall just kind of freezes up and doesn't know what to do. And then it gets taken down because Chris Weidman will at least get one takedown. But it's so like, I don't know, man. It bothers me to think that people might be putting money. If you have a good read on this one, great. But I'm staying the hell away from this. It's a tough one. It's a really hard coin flip for me to choose, because which do I prefer? Which do I want to rely on? Do I want to rely on the skill but weak chin of Weidman, or the tentativeness of Uriah Hall, who in all honesty might let this one slip out of his fingers because he's not uber aggressive and he is a bit of a head case. I don't know. Partially, I kind of want to see Chris Weidman, retire with the win. Uriah Hall, I think he still has a bit more left in the tank. I'll go with Weidman just for the hell of it. I'll say Weidman wins this one by his just determination and grappling. Hopefully he protects that chin, because even if Uriah Hall is backing up and then just closes his eyes and swings and just the air pushes towards Weidman's chin, I think he gets knocked out. But, it is what it is. I'll go with Weidman to win this one. I'll say third round submission.
I think I'll have to disagree. I'm going to say call in this, just because I think Weidman is way past. I think, Weidman is more of a Bellator contender at this point. I think he's going to be fighting Musashi for the title within the next year or so. Weidman is, to me, it seems like just yesterday, but we're almost a decade into, where Weidman, shocked the world and beat Anderson Silva. Weidman was he basically took Weidman is the guy who took everything that Chael Sonnen worked for, basically.
It's true. It's so true.
It's I don't know why Chael Sonnen never called him out. Anyway, the title would have come back to Anderson Silva after Chael popped for roids or whatever the hell he popped for. Anyway, but they didn't for Weidman, so I got to respect him for that. But as far as his current state, I have to say Weidman is nowhere near what he used to be, and the only chance he has in this fight is, I see this as Hall's fight to lose. Hall's going to piece him up on the feet. Chris Weidman has, I don't know what happened to him, man, but he just lost it. He doesn't have what it takes on the feet anymore. If Hall sleeps on Weidman's wrestling, I think that's the only real chance he has of just controlling him on the ground. I don't think he'll do much, and I don't think he'll be able to submit him. So I'm going to take Hall by decision. Possibly knockout. He might catch him on the feet. That's if Weidman doesn't automatically shoot for a takedown at the beginning of every round, and keep Hall on the ground. There really isn't much more to this fight than that. Either Hall's going to dominate him on the feet if he can stuff those takedowns, or Weidman is going to control the fight on the ground. I see more of Hall controlling the fight on the feet and being able to stuff him. But that's a big question mark. So again, it's his fight to lose, but I'll take Hall by decision.
Our next matchup for the UFC Women's Flyweight Championship, we've got Valentina "Bullet" Shevchenko and Jessica "Piledriver" Andrade, if you will. Very fascinating matchup. Andrade is getting her first crack at Valentina after knocking out Katlyn Chookagian with a body shot, which, some might argue, well, it's just a one-fight winning streak after losing to Rose Namajunas and Weili Zhang, losing her title to Weili Zhang. But no one really does that to Katlyn Chookagian. Katlyn has a way of just beating all the top prospects. You have to be pretty good to finish her. So I'll give her that slide into Valentina. Plus, there's no one else. So what are you going to do? Valentina, we know what she can do. She's very, very well-rounded. Recently beat Jennifer Maia, where she lost her first round to Jennifer Maia. she knocked out Caitlin Chukagian because, of course, she is. Beat Liz Carmouche, knocked out Jessica Ai, proving that she's not bulletproof. And then she, of course, dominated Joanna. And it's a very fascinating matchup. The odds are super heavily favored for Shevchenko, minus 400, and then a plus 300 for Jessica. And it's hard not to argue with that because Valentina's got everything going for her. She's got the win streak. She's beaten some really good girls. It's just that this is a different stylistic matchup because Jessica hits really damn hard and she will go after you and she'll try to slam you on your head. And it's a possibility. It's a very, very good possibility that could happen because I know you have your opinions about Shevchenko, but we did see Jennifer Maia kind of bully her around, and that's it's a good possibility that we might see at least one slam from Jessica Andrade. But it's hard not to pick Valentina. Valentina's proven herself. She went in there with Amanda Nunes twice, and arguably, I think she won the second fight, but on paper she didn't. I think she's just too good. Her movement's too good. Her striking's too good. Her grappling has gotten better. I will see some hairy moments. I think we're going to see some in this fight. I think Jessica, at a certain point, she says, screw it, and goes balls to the wall and tries to knock you out. And she might even hurt Shevchenko, which would be awesome to see, right? Because it's hard to watch certain fighters like this where they're like a minus 400 and there's no real value in picking them to win unless it's like a specific prop, either second, third, fourth round knockout, submission, whatever. So a little bit of vulnerability always kind of piques my interest when they fight again. Like, hey, they got hurt by this fighter and this other fighter that they're fighting hits pretty hard. Maybe we might see that again. So that'd be cool to see. But I do have Valentina to win this one. I think she's going to catch Jessica with maybe a head kick or just something very clean. Jessica can get a little reckless in there. She swings a little too hard and overextends herself. Her being at a height disadvantage, usually when she fights longer, taller fighters like Rose Namajunas, at least the first time, and when she fought Joanna, better technical strikers are going to piece her up. I see that happening here. Valentina easily pieced up Jon Jacek. I see the MMA math working on this one. Valentina is just going to piece up Andrade from the outside using kicks, very clean striking and movement. And then we'll see another little dance with Shevchenko wearing the belt. So I've got Valentina that'll win this one. I'm going to say third round knockout, but there will be a hairy moment in this one.
This is actually the fight I'm looking forward to the most on this card. And that is to say the three, realistically, this fight has three main events, three title fights. And honestly, I'm looking forward to the women's title fights rather than the actual, main event with Kamaru and what's his face. But this is by far the fight I'm looking forward to the most. And that the reason for that is because I think Jessica, besides Amanda, I think Jessica is the most dangerous fighter that Valentina could face. In her last time out, Valentina did face Jennifer Maia, and Jennifer Maia exposed a big hole in Valentina's game, and that is the cage control. While she didn't, necessarily control her all that much on the ground, she did push her toward the cage, and control the fight there for a bit. Now, that's pretty dangerous against Jessica because if she allows Jessica to do, push her up against cage and control her there, she's not just going to hold her and, pitter patter. Jessica is going to slam her on her head. And I don't think Valentina wants that. So, and from everything that I've seen from Valentina, I follow her on Instagram. She posts clips of, training that she does and whatever. She's still training striking. So I honestly don't understand this. She's a great striker already. Why isn't she training, against grappling and wrestling and whatnot? Because that is the biggest hole in her game right now, as Jessica Maia clearly showed. Because if Jessica had even a little bit of wrestling or a little bit of strength like Jessica does, she would have clearly beat Valentina in that fight, but she didn't. On the feet, I think Valentina is has the sharper striking, both boxing, kickboxing wise. but Jessica has power in her hands. You know, we saw what one punch to the gut or ribs or whatever did to whatever Ian in her last fight out. Yeah, whatever. In her last fight. And I don't think, it was just one punch and that basically put her out. And it wasn't even a liver shot. So that's crazy to think what taking a liver shot from Andrade would feel like. So this is the most intriguing fight to me. Will Jessica be able to control the fight on the feet? That just doesn't mean striking wise, but be able to not hug her, but I guess hug her, toward the cage and be able. Will we see a slam here? Will we see just takedowns? Will we see trips from Valentina? Because Valentina is actually not too shabby with her trips. So this is the biggest, I think, question mark for me. Is sure Valentina should win, but I'm not counting Jessica out at all. I'm taking Valentina here to win by decision because I don't know if she'll be able to knock out Jessica. I know Jessica's taking this very, very seriously. And, being that she's 125 pounds, she is a lot stronger, as we saw with Caitlin. So, this is Valentina's biggest fight to date, short of a rematch with Nunes. So I'll take Valentina here, but yeah, man, still, I am by far not looking past Jessica's. Yeah, she's only 5'1", man, so that's crazy. I'm not looking past her freakish, Taz-like strength in there. So yeah, I think it would be well. I mean, I don't want to see it, but at the same time, it would be cool to see her suplex Valentina or something.
That'd be really fucking cool.
But I get the feeling, there will be some of that. I'm just hoping Valentina trained, a lot more grappling this time around because her striking is fine. It's not going to get better, yes, but I think, she needs to even out her grappling and wrestling skills to come up to par to her striking, kind of like Amanda has done. Amanda's really filled in that game, and that's helped her, get past some of those challenges. But yeah, this is the most exciting fight to me on the card.
Our next matchup for the UFC Strawweight Championship, we've got Magnum Weili Zhang versus Thug Rose Namajunas. I like this one. This one might be the one that I'm more interested in watching than the main event. Zhang has looked pretty damn spectacular in the cage. She's on an excellent winning streak. I think she's on a 20-fight winning streak or so. But damn, she has beaten some pretty good girls in the UFC. She knocked out Andrade easily. I was very surprised that Andrade didn't put up more of a fight against Weili Zhang, but she knocked her out in China. Then she had fight of the year with Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I personally thought Zhang versus Jędrzejczyk was like not only one of the best women's fights, for sure the best women's fight ever, but really a fantastic fight. It was so damn good that you forgot that Romero versus Izzy fought after them and just stunk up the fucking card. But that was a really good fight. Very close matchup. And there's a lot of hype really currently with Weili Zhang. And there's damn right should be, right? She has really proven herself to really be the champion that not only the UFC want because of the China reach, they're trying to reach China, but just as an exciting fighter. But she is fighting former champion Rose Namajunas. And very similar to Uriah Hall. She's very good. And then when she's on her game, she is marvelous. Like in and out movement, very straight punches, very fluid and fast, and very nice to see. The first fight with Andrade, she was whipping her ass very easily. And then unfortunately, Andrade caught her and slammed her on her fucking head, which happens. You could be winning an entire fight and then something like that happens. But she looked the best she's ever looked in that particular fight. And unfortunately, she lost in that one. Then coming back, she beat Andrade the second time around, but she didn't look as good or as fluid. And frankly, I think Zhang right now, I don't want to say she's unbeatable because, and I don't want to say I think Rose might upset it. I can definitely see Rose looking like the Rose of old and kind of piecing up Yang. I think her movement might give Yang, I keep calling her Yang, Zhang some problems. Part of me gets a really weird gut feeling that I think Rose might potentially knock out Weili Zhang with just her movement and straight punches. But the problem is Rose kind of has a bit of a mental issue sometimes. Like when Connor threw the dolly and she was in the bus, that fucked her up real bad. Like so much so that she took some time off, started talking some nonsense about maybe suing Connor and things like that. You don't want to hear that from a possible title challenger. Yeah, I'm not trying to make fun of her for having maybe some sort of anxiety issue, but you kind of have to have your mind straight when you're in the cage fighting. You can't have those type of lapses outside the cage because it makes me think you might have them inside the cage. For that particular reason, I think Weili Zhang is going to take this one relatively easily. I say it's going to be a pretty good fight between these two girls. I think it might even be fight of the night, but I do have Zhang winning this one by decision. I will even say this: I can even see Rose clearly winning on the scorecards and Yang still getting the decision. But I'll go with Weili Zhang to win this one by decision. Rose, I think she's still really good, but I can't trust her at this point. Not betting on this one whatsoever. I might do the over for sure, but I'm just going to try to sit back and enjoy this one. But yeah, hopefully Rose shows us glimpses of her old self because, man, she was so damn fun to watch. But yeah, I'll go with Zhang easily by a decision.
I'm actually taking Rose here by decision.
Ballsy, bro.
I think she's got the. I'm not going to say that we're going to see the Rose of old here, but I think she's still got the better. I should say I think she has the better movement here. I think she's got that jab. I think she's a better fighter at distance. I think she does a good job of closing that distance and getting out of I think she'll be able to get out of the way of Weili's power punches and whatnot. Unlike Joanna, she stood in the pocket with her and just exchanged, and we all saw Joanna's test footage for the Elephant Man sequel. But Rose isn't. I don't think she's going to do that, and Weili isn't going to slam her on her head, nor is she going to trash talk and get in her head or anything. So really, unless Rose has a fragile state of mind at the moment, I think she's actually going to piece up Weili. And I think more so in the later rounds, Weili's going to get frustrated, and I think Rose is going to catch her with something and maybe possibly even submit her, maybe in the third, fourth round. Very, very good possibility. But Weili is a champ. Weili is tough. She's shown that she can stand in there with the best. And Rose is going to be another challenge, but I think Rose has enough, short of her psyching herself out. I think this is Rose's fight to lose. So I'll take Rose by decision. I think we're going to see a new and once again strawweight champ, and that'll open up, that'll open up new fights for her. Maybe a rematch against Joanna, or I don't know, some other contender. But yeah, I'll take Rose here.
It's funny because I'm rooting for Rose. I think she has a ability to win, but I'm a little too chicken shit to actually pick her to win. So props to you, dude. I agree with what you say. There's some clear possibilities, like very clear openings that she can take advantage of, but I'm too pussy to go for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Rose mainly because I don't have any money on her. So it's just a pick. Yeah. But I do believe in Rose, and I do believe in her skill set. Weili is tough as hell. But I think just Rose's Rose's Rose uses her kind of lengthy and long limbs to her advantage, unlike a lot of these other fighters. And I think she has great technique, and she also does train with Valentina. I think every once in a while, they're not like strict training partners, but I think Valentina travels to Colorado to train with Rose every now and again, and they've been shown to help each other sharpen their skills.
Do you think that if Rose wins, she'll get on the mic and she'll call out communist China and say, "You've been taking everything I work for, motherfucker"?
Yeah, probably. That would be funny. I mean, it would be great if Rose won and then they did the rematch in China. That'll be pretty sick. And then Rose walks in with a American flag jumpsuit into the weigh-ins or something, or into the press conference with with an American flag bandana, American flag sunglasses. Yeah, that'd be pretty crazy.
In our main event, we've got a rematch for the welterweight championship between the Nigerian Nightmare Kamaru Usman and Gamebred Jorge Masvidal. And it's a rematch from their previous fight from last summer, where Jorge Masvidal stepped in on a couple weeks' notice to fight Kamaru. And frankly, I'll be 100%. I'm quite a big fan of Jorge Masvidal, not because people say I kind of look like him, because I have the long hair now, but I was kind of a fan of his the moment he was on Ariel's podcast and he talked about him being the sucker punch king. I was like, holy shit, this guy's pretty entertaining. I used to hate Jorge Masvidal. I hated his ass when he fought Gilbert Melendez back in Strikeforce. Just never my kind of guy. But as of late, within say the last few years, I was like, I'm coming around. I kind of like Jorge. He has some very good skill, and this is way before the Darren Till knockout. I was rooting for his bitch ass versus Damian Maia. I was actually there in Texas, and I was like, oh shit, he might actually win this one by split, but no, it didn't happen. He has that issue where he just didn't pull the trigger back then. And then for Kamaru Usman, it's quite similar. I've never really liked Usman. He kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but as of late, I've been kind of coming around. But just his ability to adapt, his ability to change, his fight IQ, I respect the shit out of Kamaru Usman. Like his fight with Gilbert Burns, he gets hurt by Gilbert, and then he comes back and jabs him to death. He knocked out Gilbert Burns with a jab, for fuck's sake. It's like, who does that? Like Trevor Whitman, him going up there and training with Justin Gage, I think has really helped him. And it's kind of scary to think that a guy who was already good with one certain aspect is getting taught by a different guy and just kind of evolving his game. And what's also funny is that although I was quite a big fan of Jorge Masvidal, he's kind of been rubbing me the wrong way now. He's kind of been acting a little too like full of himself, like as you would put it, he's drinking his own Kool-Aid, showing up on video chat with Jake Paul, training Jake Paul, like talking shit to Ben Askren. I'm like, dude, focus on your fight with Kamaru Usman. I don't care if it's taking you a couple seconds to just kind of joke around and talk shit to Ben Askren on the press conference, but like you should be 100% focused on Kamaru Usman, because frankly, I do see a way George can win this matchup. I thought he looked pretty damn good the first round. He was lighting up Kamaru Usman, and I actually picked him to win that one because I'm like, man, his striking might be a little too clean that first round. He might actually knock out Kamaru Usman, but Usman really showed what kind of a fighter he is. He's a tough guy. He can take the leg kicks, man. Like I always thought, like, man, if you hit Kamaru Usman in the knees just right, because he has some pretty bad knees, he might just crumble. But he's taking some shots that I personally don't think he should be able to take. Man, it's hard not to pick with Kamaru Usman. I think he's just going to rinse and repeat. There's a possibility Jorge could win this matchup, but I don't see it happening. I think Kamaru at this very point is so determined to just create that legacy of being the welterweight champion. I wouldn't say that he'd be quote unquote better than GSP, but I think his legacy might potentially be at the same level, maybe a little bit below him, because I don't know, like we criticize him because he was really boring at one point. He was just a oh man, he's just a grinder, right? Like it's not very entertaining to have a champion like that. But if he can put it together and start getting these finishes, I think he might be a megastar at one point. If he can beat Jorge Masvidal again, which I predict he will, I think he'll beat him again by a decision. Uh, it might give him that bit of clout again because George really used that. I took the fight on short notice. Like Colby said, like he's going to use that as an excuse to try to piggyback into another title fight, which he did. He got that shit successfully. So the one thing I will say is that Kamaru fighting a guy that he just beat relatively easily instead of taking on a different contender is a little shady. Like, dude, like, why aren't you fighting someone that you haven't beaten? I don't know if it's just a pride thing. I don't know if he might be taking George a little lightly, but yeah, I got him to win by a pretty clear cut, boring decision. I predict this one to be so bad I might just fall asleep watching it. I would hope that Jorge wins it. I really do like Jorge still. Just he needs to shut up a little bit and focus a little bit more. But I got Kamaru Usman pretty easily. Simple. I'll say maybe 49. Yeah, 49-48 decision. 49-46. I can't do math for Usman.
This is a really tough one for me, and it's tough because I'm going to try my best to stay awake during this fight. Kamaru Usman to me is still the most boring fighter on the roster, despite his last fight with Mr. Burns. I'm still not sold on Usman. I've never really been sold on Masvidal. His 2019 calendar year where he fought Darren Till, he knocked him out. Okay, that was a legit knockout. Not that his knockout against Ben Askren wasn't legit, but yeah, I mean, Ben, yeah, he knocked out Ben. He knew exactly what Ben Askren was going to do, and he planned for it. Good for him. And then he beat a lightweight, in Diaz, but he didn't really beat him. It's more, the fight got stopped due to a cut. But all of a sudden now he's drinking his own Kool-Aid. Masvidal, I've never really seen him as being, I guess he's a top 10 guy. But for sure, he doesn't have what it beats, what it needs, what he doesn't have what it takes to beat Kamaru Usman, unfortunately, because I want that guy out, man. Going from Woodley now to Usman, the welterweight division has been kind of at a, has been a stinker for several years now. Our only hope is for Colby to get his shit together and come up and finally beat Usman. But unfortunately, Masvidal's ground game is shit, so he's not going to be able to even push back on Usman when he tries to push him against the cage, which he will again. Masvidal sure has some okay striking, but he doesn't have that one punch that's going to take out Usman, because Usman's coconut, I mean, that thing is like Tito Ortiz size at this point, man. He's got enough brain fluid in there to withstand like an atomic attack. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I'm honestly not looking forward to this fight whatsoever. I might just turn off after the Weili fight, or I might just leave this in the background while I vacuum or something and wash the dishes.
You know what's funny, dude, that you mentioned that? Like, I have the weird impulse to clean while I'm watching fights too. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's I might even just have it running in the background while I read a book. I mean, that's how much I've been meaning to ramp up my reading once again, because I stopped for a bit, and I need to retrain my brain and get in the habit of reading not just fiction but nonfiction, and up my personal skills and my writing, and because my actual penmanship is horrible. I need to work on that as well, but also my writing. I have writing block, as I've mentioned to you personally, but so I need to start fixing that, and I need to improve myself. And what better time to do it than during this boring ass fight? I think these guys are Yeah, I mean, Kamaru Usman couldn't sell a pay-per-view, if his life depended on it, which it does. And I think people are going to tune in because of the, Masvidal, name recognition now. Yeah, but really not looking forward to this fight. I'll take Usman by decision. I think he'll decision him once again. It'll be 25 minutes of nonstop pushing against the cage. Maybe he'll take him down. I don't know. I don't really care, to be honest. Yeah, these guys can suck it, man. Yeah, it's. I think it's just stupid that they gave Masvidal the title shot again. That was kind of fucking stupid, but I think that's mostly what I'm pissed off at is the UFC's stupid matchmaking. But anyway, I guess for some fans, they're gonna enjoy this. Me personally, not so much. Yeah, so Usman by decision.
Those have been our picks for UFC 261, Usman versus Masvidal 2. Please like, share, subscribe, do what you got to do. Leave a comment. We love the comments. Hit us up on Instagram. We're trying to build that up a little bit too. Got some people commenting, some regulars we respect and